Howdy, howdy, brother.
Hi. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. What about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm still here. How's San Jose?
It's getting better. The sun came out, and
Finally.
yeah, but it was cold. What about there?
Okay. Yeah. Well, here is it's warming up. It's not very cold, but it's sorry, it's cold, but it's warming up. So it's bearable, if you can put it that way. All right. But it's all right. Yeah. So
And your eye?
my eye it's getting better. Still a little discomfort, but it's getting much better. I have another appointment on Wednesday, so I'll get some further news on that on Wednesday. But it's seemed to be the swelling is still there a little bit, but it's coming down. You know, and I will see what the surgeon is going to say on Wednesday. So I have that appointment on Wednesday, but it's getting better. Yeah. So Chip came and left. Yeah. So um, do I have my? I think I have my syllabus here. I think so. Yeah. So how your other classes going?
Good, very good.
Oh,
This time I just taking Hebrew
okay.
and two with you and
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I I fell with Exodus. If I turn the things now, I will got a zero.
No. You haven't failed Exodus.
Okay.
No, you
Okay.
are okay with Exodus. You have not failed Exodus.
Okay, I will turn then.
No man, no man. Neither you nor Chip.
Still waiting for grades over here.
Yes. I have been amiss with that. Um I need to enter the grades. I mean, it's way past, and I'm
I'm gonna
delinquent where
use
that is
I'm gonna
concerned.
use this as a get out of jail free card, Eddie. Anytime, I've got like something super late, be like, Exodus, my brother.
All right. Well, Exodus means to leave out, right? To get out. All
That's
right.
right.
Yeah. But I definitely need to put in the grades.
David, were you saying you were taking an easy semester? Is that what I was understanding you to say? Because that does not sound easy, my friend.
Well, it doesn't sound like GST if it's easy.
No, no, it's complicated. It's short.
How? How? I'm doing two classes and I am hanging on, man.
How many classes you doing, Chip?
Just two.
Oh, so it's very easy then.
Hey, listen, I've just been doing one at a time. I like to really
Okay.
give it my focus.
Yeah. No, you make it. We always do.
I'll be
We
the
always.
first 6 year student at GST.
Yeah. When all of this is done and gone, you look at it and smile and say, "Thank God I
Better
went through
late
all
than
of
never,
this."
huh?
Say it again.
Better late than never.
Better late, better late than never. And smile because you go through it.
Right.
So um, I'm gonna start because and Emmanuel is supposed to be coming on. I know he was having some difficulties in terms of the weather, so I don't know what, but I'm gonna start nonetheless. All right, we are in Proverbs 22, and we should be going through to chapter 24. If you follow the syllabus, we should, at the end of this week, be doing the midterm test, right? On what we have covered so far. All right. It is going to, I was thinking that it would be more useful to do short answer questions. And I have been saying that it would be short answer questions. But that is posing some difficulties. So the format will be multiple choice and some true and false, and perhaps you'll still get the passages because I still want you to interface with a passage. So the passage, what is the passage saying? And then you choose what the passage is saying in terms of the ABCD, right? But it's going to be multiple choice rather than short answer where you're right, because that's proving a bit challenging for me personally. So I will do that in terms of all of the questions will be multiple choice, not short answer. All right, which will be easier on me and easier on you, I suppose. So the format is going to change. It's not going to be short answer anymore. All right. At least you can breathe a sigh of relief for that. All right, let's get into chapter 22 of Proverbs. We had gone up to verse 6, where we spoke about training the child in the way that he should go. And we had some discussions on that. So we won't go over that, just to say that the passage has been used to teach that once a child is trained, then there's no way that he can move away from what has been taught. But what Solomon actually says is that in the way that he should go. It doesn't necessarily mean that he will go that way, but the greater possibility of him missing the straight and narrow path is if he has not been trained. All right. But having been trained is a basic foundation for him to remain on the straight and narrow path. Although, because he has his own choice, his own will, he may stay away. It's not a guarantee that he will always be on the right track, because he does have a will. He can choose. But if the foundation is not there, it is easier for him to stray. Giving him the foundation would mean that there is a greater possibility of him staying. All right. So that's where we had left off. So
Really, hey brother,
yes.
I really appreciate you talking us through this one, because I had heard it used awful lot.
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest, like I used it in a lesson, and I didn't consider the should.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's the way he
thank you for
should
that.
go. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not necessarily like the way that he will go. All right. Yeah. So as I'm saying, if he does not have a foundation, if he doesn't have the training, there's a greater risk for him to depart. And the converse is, if he is trained, there's a greater possibility that he will remain. But that doesn't mean that he is a guarantee that he always will remain, because Solomon says in the way that he should go. All right. Okay. Let's jump into let's do verses 7 through to 9 now, and see what Solomon is saying here. All right. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. Whoever sows injustice will reap calamity, and the rod of his fury will fail. Whoever has a bountiful eye will be blessed, for he shares the bread of the poor. Remember what we said in these Proverbs, including chapter 22, that Solomon is now making statements. He is now giving us individual proverbs. All right. And in verses 7 through to 8, what Solomon is now dealing with, especially in verse 7, he's dealing with economics again, economic relationships. And what he's suggesting here is that in as we deal with our peers, our family, our friends, whoever, as we deal in our relationships, all right, finances, economics, money can become into a power relationship. We can manipulate people if we have economic power over them. So, for instance, he says, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. So there is this power relationship that's going on. Who has the greater power? Who has the greater weight in the relationship? In fact, in Shakespeare, in one of his plays, I think it is Hamlet, he says, "Never a lender, a borrower be." Right? And what does he mean? If you borrow something, you can't lend it out. All right? All right? Because you have responsibility to the person who loaned it to you. So what Solomon is saying here is that whoever has riches has the ability to be the master, to be the person who dictates the relationship. All right? So then he says in verse 8, whoever sows injustice will reap calamity, and the rod of his fury will fail. Whoever has a bountiful eye will be blessed, for he shares his bread with the poor. What do you think? What is Solomon suggesting here? Is there a New Testament principle that Solomon is re-emphasizing here?
Reap sparingly.
Good, right.
Yeah, whoever reaps what they sow.
You reap what you sow. All right. So he says, if you are a person who is unjust, if you're a person who is making trouble, then if you sow to the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. All right. So what he said, importantly, what he's suggesting here is that sinful living and sin always brings a consequence. There is a if you sow injustice, there is a definite result that you're going to get. What's that? Calamity. And you're going to fail. All right. And then he says, the verse 9, whoever has a bountiful eye. What translation do you have? The ESV says bountiful eye. Any other translation that you have and what it says?
NET says a generous person.
Verse 9, the one that says whoever has a bountiful eye.
Yeah, NET use that. Let's see. I have ESV as well. Use the same.
The ESV says bountiful.
Mhm.
A bountiful eye.
Easy to read version is generous people.
Okay, all right. Here is it now. It is basically the person who is generous, the person who is out of his generosity, he looks after the poor. Solomon says that person will be blessed. All right. So there is, on the one hand, there is consequences for sinful living, but there is also generosity. Okay, there is also blessings to be had if you are generous enough to deal with those persons who are less fortunate than yourself. In this case, he says the poor. All right. Now, so Solomon in these passages from verses 6 through to 9, Solomon is dealing with the consequences of our relationships. So you train up a child, and it will give him a guide for life. If you have power in your relationship because you have it, because you are unjust, then you are going to fail. And if you are generous enough to deal kindly with the poor, then you are going to be blessed. There is blessing in being generous, especially to those who are not as fortunate as you are. All right. Now let's go to verses 10 through to 14. And one of you could read that for me, please.
About the scoffer, and contention will go out. Even strife and dishonor will cease. He who loves purity of heart, and whose speech is gracious, the king is his friend. The eyes of the Lord preserve knowledge, but he overthrows the words of the treacherous man. The sluggard says, there is a lion outside. I will be killed in the streets. The mouth of an adulteress is a deep pit. He who is cursed of the Lord will fall into it.
Up to verse what did I say? Up to verse 14.
Says,
Yes. All
that was
right.
14.
Let's look at this. In verse 10, what is it that the scoffer brings? What is it that Solomon is suggesting here? All right, let me ask you a different way. Why is Solomon advocating that we should drive out the person who is scoffing at everything, disagreeing with everything, always opposing things? Why should we drive that person out? Here's
Man,
Solomon. Yeah, yes, Chip.
they just sow dissension, and it's kind of like the fruit bowl analogy, having a rotten piece of fruit next to a lot of fresh pieces of fruit, that those other pieces of fresh fruit will be affected by the rotten one.
Yeah, in other words, what he is saying here about the scoffer, the person who is contentious, the person who is always, pessimistic, causing quarrels or whatever, that person actually brings conflict in a relationship. That person is the agent of strife. He is going to cause trouble. He is going to cause conflict. All right. He's going to ruin a relationship. That's good. So you don't want to associate yourself with that kind of a person. Whoever sows injustice, drive out the scoffer. And what happens? Quarreling will cease, abuse will cease. Because it is in the nature of these persons always to be contentious. They destroy good relationships. Notice now the opposite of what he says in the next verse. He who loves purity of heart, and whose speech is gracious, will have the king as his friend. In other words, when somebody is genuine, when somebody is gracious in his speech, when the person is able, um, is just a sincere, honest person, and who is encouraging and all of that, that person actually will be the friend of a king. In other words, that person will have blessings. That person will have peace. That's the person you want to associated with, be associated with. That's the person whose friend will be a king, will be the king. In other words, he will get benefits because if if both you and the king are friends, then clearly you have nothing to fear. Okay, you have nothing to in other words, you're in good stead. You don't want to be the king's enemy. Okay. So Solomon now is now talking about our speech again, and the importance of our relationship. All right. um he's talking about how we relate in terms of not just our relationship, but how we are going to have a good social environment and atmosphere, because you don't want to be a scoffer. You don't want, you need to be sincere, you need to be genuine. And notice what he says now in verse 12. The eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge. All right. But he comes back again now to the antithetical parallelism, but he overthrows words of the traitor. All right. In other words, again, he's just talking about us being important, in to be honest, to gender harmony rather than conflict. I want us to spend some time here on verse 13. The sluggard says, there is a lion outside. It shall be killed in the streets. Any comments on verse 13?
Something
The
different.
sluggard says there's a lion outside.
My translation says the sluggard says there's a lion outside. I will be killed in the streets.
Okay, all right. Now, any comments on that? What's that suggesting? What does that say?
It's like it is very cold outside. I won't go to work or to the church even.
All right. It's cold outside, so I can't go to church. I can't go to work. All right. Now, who's the sluggard again? Who's the sluggard?
The man that says there's a lion outside and I will be killed in the streets.
Well, why would he say that?
Because he had no plans of going out into the streets and doing anything.
Good. He's lazy. In other words, his excuse is, I can't go outside to do anything because the lion is going to kill me. There's a lion outside. So what is he doing? He's making excuses. He's making excuses because he does not want to do anything. So Solomon says, in other words, because he's trying to rationalize in his own mind why he should not be working. Why? Because if I go outside, the lion is going to kill me. So I stay in here and do nothing. And Solomon says that's the attitude of a lazy person. there's a lion. There's a lion outside. Yes, I shall be killed in the streets. So therefore, I can't work. I can't do anything. And don't we make, okay? Put it this way. Sometimes we make illogical, nonsensical excuses for not doing what we ought to do, and it sounds rational to us. Now, do you really believe that there's a lion in the street? No. But you see, it makes sense to you. It makes sense to the sluggard because he does not want to work. He's lazy. All right. He's doing it for his own self-protection. All right. And he now he's internalizing in his mind an imaginary danger as a means of not doing what he's supposed to do. All right. All right. Now he goes to another kind of relationship. The mouth of forbidden woman is a deep pit. He with whom the Lord is angry will fall into it. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Whoever oppresses the poor to increase his own wealth or gives to the rich will only come to poverty. Again, Solomon is talking about the whole idea of in where he says, for instance, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline. So he's talking about discipline. He's talking about the whole idea where you have the danger that's there, and the lifestyle that you have there is going to bring about a consequence. All right. Folly is found in the child's heart. Yes, yes, Jim.
Seems like we have a pretty nice contrast of action being taken and no action. You know, it seems like the highlight as we've been coming this way is our actions speak, words are cheap. So that just keeps on coming up.
Yes, yes. In other words, what Solomon, okay, there is action and there is inaction. There is excuse for not doing. All right. And there's a consequence to our actions or inaction. And that is basically what Solomon is suggesting here, whether it is in the child, whether it is in the sluggard, whether it is in the woman who is just where he says forbidden woman is a deep pit and people fall into it, that there are consequences. All right. There are consequences to our relationships if we are not careful to follow knowledge. And that is why he talks about where the Lord, verse 12, the eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge. Okay, so yes, there are our actions or inactions will definitely bring about consequences. All right, now let's look now, if we can, at verses 17 to 21. All right. Let's hear verses 17 to 21.
Bow thou thine ear, and hear the words of the wise, and apply thine heart unto my knowledge. For it is a pleasant thing if thou keep them within thee. They shall withal be fitted in thy lips, that thy trust may be in the Lord. I have made known to thee this day, even to thee. Have not I written to thee excellent things in counsels and knowledge, that I might make thee know the certainty of the words of truth, that thou mightest answer the words of truth to them that send unto thee?
All right. Okay. Here again, Solomon is talk. What is Solomon? What's the emphasis here in that Solomon is making in this section?
Applying the knowledge that was given.
In Solomon is saying, yeah, welcome, Emmanuel. Samuel is saying here, follow instruction. Listen to me. In other words, David, your translation says bow down your ears or bend your ears.
Bow down.
All right. Now, the ESV says incline your ears. In other words, listen to what I'm saying. I'm giving you some wise instructions. Listen to them. Verse 20, have I not written for you 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge? Listen to what I'm saying. Why? Because it will rebound to your benefit. All right. If you look at verse 21, in verse 21, he says, it will make you know what is right and true, that you may give a true answer to those who sent you. In other words, it pays to listen to instructions. All right. And he's now talking about have I not written for you 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge? So Solomon is saying that there are 30 units, there are 30 sections, there are 30 sayings that I'm asking you to follow. And I've given them to you. You now need to be careful that you do not forsake them. Don't let them slip from you. Incline your ears to them, listen to them, because they will bring benefit to you. All right, we're in chapter 22 and verse 20. We're just about finishing verse 21. We're going to begin verse 22 now. All right. All right. What are some of the sayings that Solomon is going to give us now? All right. And we're going to see this now in verses 22 through to the end of the chapter. Here's what he said. Here is his wise sayings now. Number one, do not rob the poor because he's poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate. For the Lord will plead their cause and rob of life those who rob them. Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. Be not one of those who puts up security for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should your bed be taken from under you? Do not move the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. Do not see a man skilled. Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. What are some of the wise sayings that Solomon is giving here now? Again, he's coming back to how the poor is treated. Don't rob the poor. Okay? Why? Because God looks after the poor. Don't exploit the poor. Don't take advantage of people who are not who are less than you are, whether it is, in this case, it's money, but don't take disadvantage of people when you have the power over them. Don't treat them unkindly. Why? Because the Lord looks after the poor. Okay? That is one. Secondly, what Solomon is saying here is this: be careful with whom you associate. Again, evil communications corrupt good morals. Be careful of your association, because you will learn their behaviors that are sinful, that are just wrong, evil behavior. Don't associate with people like that, because they will corrupt your good influence and your good name. All right. Here is something now. Solomon, I want us to look at this verse here. Again, Solomon has always been saying, don't put up surety for people when you can't stand their security. All right? He's talking about your commitment as a guarantor and all of that. But the verse I really want us to look at is verse 28. Do not remove the ancient landmark that your fathers have set. What is Solomon, first of all, talking about? And then I'll give you some ideas afterwards. Do not remove the ancient landmarks which your fathers have set.
Mine says, do not move the ancient boundary which your fathers have set.
All right. What boundaries is he talking about?
I mean, it makes me think of, we're studying in Daniel, the Ancient of Days, talking about God the Father actually setting up boundaries and saying, these are the things we need to be doing, and, don't stray from these boundaries that I have given to you.
Okay. All right. What you have just done, you have looked at the application of the verse, right? But in terms of the context in which Solomon is talking about is what I want to drive at before I get to the application. All right, here's what it is. Any ideas? Any Emmanuel? Any ideas? Emmanuel should be able to relate to this more, I think, than most of us. I don't know if David wants to comment. Do not remove the ancient landmarks which your fathers have set.
The context is about debts, and if you did not take anything borrowed, so you have not, you cannot be afraid, or you don't have to be afraid. So I was thinking perhaps is about covetous. If thy father has some property and they gave you some heritage, is that right?
Yes, that's the word.
So I was thinking about that. Perhaps it's like, don't be covetous and get into debts. Perhaps it's my
All
thinking
right.
according to the context. I don't know if I'm okay.
Hold that for a while. Hold that for a while. Let me hear what Emmanuel is going to say. Any ideas, Emmanuel? You're muted.
No idea for now.
No idea for now. Okay. Solomon is talking about property rights, land. Your fathers before you, they have given you land, and they have put ancient landmarks to say, this is where your land stops, that's where your land stops. Good. So the ancient landmark is where he's talking about you have made, you mark out this piece of land and you put a landmark there and says, this belongs to me. My land begins here, it ends here. That's where my neighbor begins, my next door neighbor, that's where his land. That's the idea of the landmark. Know where you mark the land. Good? That's one. In the context. So David was close to it in terms of talking about property. Now, what Solomon is saying, that there is an agreement that has been made that this is mine and this is yours. You might, David, want for covetous reasons to extend and go over somebody else's lot. Does that remind you of anybody else in the Old Testament? Do we have an example of this in the Old Testament? With a king. His name begins with an A. And his
Ahab,
wife, say again?
Ahab taking the vineyard of that other guy. I don't remember his name.
Of that other guy. What's the name of that other guy?
I forgot that
Naboth.
name, but yeah.
He and Jezebel, remember? Ahab comes and says, I want that land over there. And he cries on Jezebel's shoulder. And Jezebel says, you're the king, you can't just do that. Okay, what? There was a landmark that this belongs to Ahab, this belongs to Naboth. All right? It's that kind of an idea. Follow me now. So what Solomon is saying is that there is an agreement, in this case, property rights, that you have agreed to abide by. Solomon is saying, respect that. Good? Respect the boundaries. Don't be shifting and trying to swindle and deceive on a technicality. All right? So that is in the context. Now, Chip, when you said made your point, what's the application you're making again? Remind us. Your comment, what you said.
Stay within the boundaries of what has been set up when it comes to the ways to live your life.
All right. Okay. Here is it now.
Brother, real quick
Yes.
before you gave the explanation, the first thing that came to my mind with this was when, if I remember well, was it Jacob that dig the wells again and named by the name that Abraham did?
Mm-hmm.
The first thought that I came to my mind was that like to keep all the old things as they were. But
All right. Okay. All right. Watch me now. Uh, David and others. There is an application that I want us to see here, and I'm giving you here a title for a sermon, and the sermon is "Remove Not the Ancient Landmark." All right. Watch this.
say again, please.
There, hmm?
Can you repeat that?
The title of the sermon could be "Remove Not the Ancient Landmark." Okay. And I hope that you will be able to see all of this now. What are some of the New Testament landmarks that we have?
Calvary.
Hmm?
Calvary.
All right. I'm not talking about that. Okay, Calvary, but that's not where I'm going.
Okay.
All right, let me give you an example. Is there a landmark as to how a person should become a Christian? Has that landmark been set?
Yes.
Don't remove the landmark. Don't say don't go preaching that baptism doesn't save. That's an ancient landmark you must not move. One, can we have women preachers in a mixed audience? Well, that was Paul didn't like women, and Paul lived in a patriarchal society. So things have changed now. So women can stand and pound the pulpit. Well, that's an ancient landmark you must not move. You see where I'm going with it? Okay, in terms of your application that I'm saying you're going now, there are some standards. There are some standards that are God set, that our fathers have set, not that the apostles have taught, that Jesus has taught. Don't remove them. Keep the ancient landmark. You see where I'm going with it? So even though in the context, Solomon is talking about the landmark of the land and the agreement that was made, there is the case that there are some religious truths that are landmarks that must not change. Look at worship. Well, young people are not coming to the church because we now need to incorporate what they call contemporary new worship. All right, praise and worship and all of that. And okay, that's an ancient landmark that must never be moved. That the singing in worship must be congregational without the use of instrumental music. That's a landmark that you must never remove. And you can do whatever you want with it. All right. So that's where I wanted to go. Yeah, there are, but then Chip, there are some landmarks that remain. Calvary, okay, the resurrection. There are certain things that we ought to keep. Don't move them. All right. So that's a sermon that you could toss around in your head. All right. Okay. So where are we now? We were just at verse 28. Do not move the ancient landmark that your fathers have set. Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. What is your point here? What's your point here, Solomon? Your point here is that there must be your diligence, your skill. He is very opposite from the sluggard who says there is a lion in the way. All right. So here's what we have in chapter 22. We have number one, the individual sayings that guard our lifestyle. Okay. But we also have the reaction. There's an action and there is an action or inaction, and there's a reaction to it. There is a consequence. So Solomon is saying, listen, attend to these principles that I'm giving to you.
I
All
was
right?
I
Yeah.
was noticing, brother, there was a change here since verse 16, right? Like I
Yes.
noticed a lot of thine and thou and thee. It's
Yes.
different the dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's now um talking to the person. You incline your ears. You do this. You do this. All right. So he is giving his blessings to these people. All right. You can remove the scoffer from your presence, but you cannot remove the ancient landmark. All right. Be careful of how you live and your action, because they do have consequences. So that basically is chapter 22. Now let me see. Let's now go into chapter 23. We'll look at now chapters 23 and 24. All right. Any comments on chapter 22? Any closing comments we want to make? All right, let's move on. All right. Now, Solomon in these verses, in these chapters, that is in chapter 23 and 24, he is still talking about the sayings of the wise. All right. And that is going to go right through to up to, well, the end of the chapter. All right, where he talks about the sayings of the wise person. And what is he going to deal with again? He's going to deal with wealth, money. He's going to be dealing with discipline. He's going to be dealing with relationships, speech, and how we treat each other. So there is going to be wealth, economy, finances, that kind of thing. He's going to be talking about discipline. He's going to be talking about relationships. And he's going to be talking about our speech and our relationship with each other, how we deal with each other. All right. Now, let's break down the chapter again. We can break down chapter 23 again. All right. So from verse 1 to 11, Solomon is talking about wisdom in our social and financial life. All right, that is verses 1 to 11. In verses 12 to 18, again, he goes back to the idea of discipline. That is verse 12 to 18. And then when we go from verses 19 to 35, he's talking about immorality. All right. No, that's verse 23. All right, so let's start. Could you read verses 1 to 3 of chapter 23?
When you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat. If you are a man given appetite, do not desire his delicacy, for they are deceptive food.
All right, okay. What advice is Solomon giving here? What he's saying, have self-control in terms of your when you sit and you're invited at the ruler's table. Have self-control. That's basically what Solomon is saying. The importance of self-control.
Makes me think about Daniel.
Aha. What about Daniel?
Well, Daniel chose not to eat the king's food that the king had because he didn't want to violate any. He wanted to stay within those boundary markers that we were talking about a minute ago.
All right. Daniel would not defile himself at the king's table. All right. So here is Solomon's point. Solomon is using the idea of have some amount of self-control. And he's using some metaphors here. So he says, when you sit down at to eat with a ruler, carefully observe what is set before you. And rather than putting the knife on the meat, put the knife at your throat. Right? Here is Solomon's point. There is danger in not, okay, there's a danger in a lack of self-control. There is a danger when you have too much ambition. How do we get? You're not going to go there and eat everything you see. Right? Now, do not despise his delicacies, for they do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. In other words, Solomon is saying, if you don't master self-control, you are going to be in trouble. That's basically what he's saying. All right? He's not talking about literal food that you cannot eat or whatever. He's using that to make the point of the importance of raw ambition, just eating everything going on, to gain people's favor, or he's suggesting that there has to be some amount of self-control. Otherwise, you are going to be deceived. You know, my mother used to say to us, she usually uses this phrase, be satisfied or you will steal. In other words, her point was, if you are not able to be satisfied with what you have, then you run the danger of, well, in her case, stealing, because you always want to get what you see, everything you see, and you can't get it. And if you can't get it, you're going to take dishonest means to get it. And Solomon is here saying, exercise some amount of self-control. What is he doing though? He is still giving words of the wise. All right. Now look at verses 4 and 5. When your eyes light on it, it is gone. Sorry. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. What is his point here?
Store up heavenly treasures.
In other words, Solomon is talking about the futility of wealth. Wealth, he's not saying you must be rich, but he's just saying when your desire is bent on getting rich, acquiring wealth, Solomon says that is going to fly away. That is not lasting. That is just temporary. All right? You have to be careful how much you go after money, after material wealth, because it is not lasting.
Why does this make me think of Exodus for some reason?
Mm-hmm. What
Because
about
we're talking
Exodus?
about eagle's wings.
Oh, yes. Yes, I bore you on eagle's wings. Yes. But what? Solomon says it will soon fly away. All right? You waste your time on bent on getting and acquiring money, it will definitely fly away. It's not lasting. All right? Do not eat the bread of a man who is stingy. Do not desire his delicacies. For he is like one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsels that you have eaten, or waste your pleasant words. Okay. Solomon's point is this. Now watch me. Solomon is talking about a miser, someone who is stingy. All right. In other words, don't waste your time on someone who is stingy. Don't eat with a miser.
Brother,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
No, man.
I was finding interesting comparing this phrase "evil eye" with the
Mm-hmm.
22:9, where it says "bountiful eye," or other version says "good eye," and that
Mm-hmm.
good eye is a generous person. But here, the evil eye is that is restraining all to him. So he's giving you something, but not for a good reason.
Exactly. He is that he is being I don't know if you know the word duplicity. In other words, he is giving you something, but he is not genuine about it. He's not honest about it. And yes, there's a good contrast between the good eye and the evil eye. All right? Because a miser is a person who will he will give you, but at the same time, he doesn't mean you well. All right? His heart is not with you. And Solomon is saying, be careful of individuals like that. All right. And by extension, you must not be like that. Okay. Um, Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. In verses 10 to 11, watch him. Again, he comes back to the same: do not remove an ancient landmark or enter the field of the fatherless, for their redeemer is strong. The person who's buying you back or buying back the land is strong. He will plead their case against you. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to the words of knowledge. Okay. The idea is Solomon is saying here, don't okay, again, the same property rights he's talking about, but he's just saying, make sure that in your relationship with each other, you're not exploiting people. All right. You're not, be careful how you live with people. Now, this verse, if we go from verses 12 to 18, again, Solomon is warning them, be careful that you do not, well, he says, apply your heart to instruction, verse 12, and listen to knowledge. Again, he's appealing to the good sense of the individual. Now, this verse is when I was in primary school and you would be whipped and beaten by your teacher. We had a teacher in primary school, when she was going to do that, she would read this to you. Verses 12. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. If you strike him with a rod, you shall save his soul from hell, from Sheol. I think we have spoken about discipline already, and the whole matter of corporal punishment. That okay, the Bible is not averse to it. Not that you can't spank a child, you can, but what Solomon is saying, when you discipline a child, when you correct a child, you are actually saving that child from danger. You're training the person to respect limits, to respect bounds, to respect authority. All right. He says, my son. Again, he comes back to the father-son relationship. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all the day. Surely there is future, and your hope will not be cut off. Solomon is suggesting again, if you are disciplined, if you train the child to respect authority, if you train the child to respect boundaries and to respect limit, and if the child is a disciplined child, the father, he is going to bring joy to his father. All right. And so again, Solomon is saying you are securing the person's future hope. You're ensuring that the person is going to live a life that is beneficial. You're going to give the person the chance of a worthwhile life. So do not be afraid to correct. Do not be afraid of discipline. What does the Hebrew writer says? That the Lord chastens whom he loves. Didn't we have fathers who chastened us when we were young? The Hebrew writer asked, yes. Why is that? Because it is a way of preserving your integrity and good name. It's a way of making your parents be proud, because then you're going to be guided by the fear of the Lord. Your life is going to be one that is lived in view of the Lord's, of being wise, the fear of the Lord. All right. Let me just see if I can get a little, we have about a couple of minutes before we take the break. Hear him again. Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Be not among drunkards, or among gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. In other words, Solomon is saying, be careful of immorality. Be careful of sinful living. Be careful of intemperance. All right. Be discerning in what you eat and all of that. Live. Don't be seduced by these things because they are not good. They will bring about your ruin. All right. That's up to verse. We just ended verse 21. All right. Um, let's take our break now, and we will get back at say we'll get back at about at 3 o'clock. We take our break, and we'll come back at 3 o'clock. All right. Okay. Yes. Sorry about that.
He doesn't have his headset.
It's time to. Sorry, start
Hey,
off.
Eddie,
Yes.
my daughter wanted to meet you.
Hello. Hi. Nice to see you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right, just a minute. Give me a minute, please.
What you looking for, sis? Thought you just had it a second ago.
Okay. All right, let's start back. We should be beginning. We ended at verse 21. Am I missing my notes here? Yeah, we should begin at verse 22 now. Or yes. We should begin at verse 22. All right. Now, listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and sell it not, but by wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father, could somebody read up to from verses 22 to verse 28 for me, please?
I'll get this one. Let's see. Listen to your father who begot you, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom and instruction and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice, and he who sires a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and your mother be glad, and let her rejoice who gave birth to you. Give me your heart, my son, and let your eyes delight in my ways. For a harlot is a deep pit, and an adulterous woman is a narrow well. Surely she lurks as a robber and increases the faithless among men.
All right. Again, Solomon is dealing with the responsibility of the children to their parents, the encouragement that he's giving, the encouragement that he's giving to them in terms of their obedience to their parents. Anybody wants to comment on the verse, buy the truth and sell it not? What does he mean by that?
Hang on to it and don't let it go.
All right. In other words, let me before I comment. Anybody else?
I
Buy the
can
truth and yeah.
I can think in the parable when the person find a treasure in that land and go and sell everything just to buy the land
Mm-hmm.
to keep it. And I was thinking that there's a lot of things that we can say to buy the truth. That implies that you it requires effort
Mm-hmm.
to know it, and it's something that you it's not for gain but to keep it. Like when you have a great car and you don't want to sell it, never. It's just for you to enjoy yourself. I can compare.
All right. Emmanuel, any comments on buy the truth and sell it not? If
If
not, yeah, go on.
if you get the truth, you need to handle it very well. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there is a hidden things within you. You don't need to, leave it out. You need to treasure it, hold it firmly.
All right. The three of you have the idea. Truth is a very valuable commodity. Truth is something that must be cherished and valued. In other words, never take the idea of truth for granted. In other words, the truth is something that must be treasured. It is something that must be appreciated. And so, what Solomon is saying to his son here is that, look here, um, be respectful of your parents. Listen to the advice. Again, he's coming back to the idea of the kind of home that is of value, the kind of home that will make for a good life. Um, don't forget the instruction of your parents. Um, he talks about the righteousness of the father will greatly rejoice. Um, let your mother and your father be glad. Um, treasure truth, treasure knowledge. It is not something that must be taken lightly. All right, it is something. There is value to truth. In verse 28, in verse 26, he says, "My son, give me your heart and let your eyes observe my ways." In other words, listen to my experience. Then he comes back again to the idea of the woman of folly, the evil woman. He comes again about the deceptive nature of temptation, the deceptive nature of sinful sexual immorality, the idea of how these values help to form your life and shape your life so that it can be of benefit, so it can be beneficial. All right. In other words, for Solomon, Solomon is suggesting that you need to protect that which is dear, whether it is the advice of your parents, whether it is the knowledge of the truth, and therefore you will be able to guard yourself against moral dilemmas. So that's where he ends. The innocent street among you would man. In other words, when you value knowledge, when you value the fear of the Lord, when you value understanding and wisdom, it gives you a discerning mind and a discerning attitude to live a life that is pleasing to God. And that is Solomon's point. All right. So he talks about the value of the home. You guarding yourself against sin, protecting yourself from things that would destroy your life, whether it is drunkenness, whether it is sexual folly, whether it is disobedience to your parents. All of these things, if you go down that route, your life is of no value. You're destroying your life. So, my son, listen to your mother, listen to your father, incline your ear to wisdom. Because if you do that, then you will have this discerning mind about how to live a godly, peaceful, wholesome life. That's Solomon's point. All right. Now let's look at Solomon as he comes from verse 29 to the end of the chapter. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Through these rhetorical questions, Solomon is saying, let's look at the person who is going to be sorrowful. Let's look at the person whose life is going to be contentious. Let's look at who has a envious eye. What would lead to such a lifestyle? And in answering the question, he says, those who tarry long over wine, the drunkard, those who go to try mixed wine. Do not look at what he's talking about, the drunkard now. Do not look at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Your eye will see strange things, and your heart utter perverse things. You will be like the one who lies down in the midst of the sea, like the one who lies at the top of the mast. They struck me, you will say, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. All right? Solomon is saying, you see how alcohol, drunkenness, wine, and those things, how it destroys your life. Basically, that's what Solomon is saying. Be careful about the deceptive nature of alcohol and the effects of alcohol, because you are not thinking, you're not rational. All right, and it is going to lead to your destruction. All right, so that's Solomon's point here in chapter 23. All right, so again, he's looking at the what word do I use here now? The destructive effect of alcohol. All right, and such a lifestyle. All right. Any important points that you want to bring out in chapter 23? All right. Now, let's go to chapter 24. All right. What is it that we are having here now in chapter 24? And again, Solomon is dealing with wisdom, and he's dealing with the life that we live amongst our peers. So let's begin now with the outline of chapter 24. The first two verses, Solomon talks about don't imitate evil men. Okay. Then in verses 4 to 9, he deals with the difference between wisdom and folly. That's between verses 4 to 9. He talks about the difference between wisdom and folly. In verses 8 through to verse 12, Solomon talks about the schemes of the scoffer. All right, he talks about the schemes of the scoffer. That is from verses 10 to 14. All right. When you get to verses 15 through to verse 20, Solomon talks about that God protects the righteous, the protection of the righteous. That's verse 14 to 18. He is protecting the righteous. And then to the end of the chapter, up to verse 22, he talks about don't associate with evildoers. All right. Look at what he's going to be talking about now in these verses.
14 through 18, Brother Fisher.
14 to 18, he's talking about that God protects the righteous.
Thank you.
Okay. Be not envious of evil men, nor desire to be like them, for their heart devise violence, and their lips talk of trouble. So you don't want to pattern your life from these people. You don't want to follow these people example. They are not examples that you want to follow. All right? That's not the standard that you're going to live your life on. All right? Now, notice something here now. I'm going to include okay. By wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding, it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious, pleasant riches. A wise man is full of strength, and a man of knowledge enhances his might. For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory. Wisdom is too high for a fool. In the gate he does not open his mouth. Whoever plans to do evil will be called a scheme. The devising of folly is sin, and the scoffer is an abomination to mankind. Here, what would you say is Solomon suggesting here about wisdom? Is he talking about a literal house here? Yes, there's a skill in building a house, but is Solomon necessarily talking about a physical house here? Is he talking about how is he contrasting wisdom and folly, wisdom and foolishness? Here it is. He's not talking necessarily about a physical house, right? If you take your life as a house, notice now the value of wisdom. Wisdom establishes a life. Your house, your life must be built on understanding, verse 3. Knowledge fills the rooms, and a wise man is full of strength. So the spiritual values that you have, wisdom, ensures that your life is properly built and that it has it is built on a good foundation. What's that foundation? Understanding, knowledge. All right. He says, for by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in the abundance of counselors there is victory. So again, not literal war, but Solomon is saying, here is the value. Here is the value of wisdom. It will bring you a victorious reward. All right. It will bring you to the gate. It will bring you to a place of judgment, and you will be rewarded. You'll be blessed. There is blessing in living a life that is full of knowledge and understanding. All right. Now, the fool doesn't go after verse 7. The fool doesn't appreciate wisdom. It's foolish to disregard the counsel. It is foolish to disregard knowledge and understanding. All right. Now, notice what he says here and how important it is to plan for, okay, whoever plans to do evil will be a schemer, will be called a schemer. The devising of folly is sin, and the scoffer is an abomination to mankind. Okay, that's what he says in verse 8. In other words, a person who lacks wisdom is a threat to his society. All right. He is talking about the idea that we ought to live lives that are morally upright because of the benefit that is accrued, the benefit that you can gain, the benefit that society gets from people there who are trained, who are disciplined, who have lived their lives in accordance with the will of God, with the fear of the Lord. All right. So in other words, what Solomon is saying, a life of wisdom and knowledge and understanding is a life that is beneficial not just to the individual, but to the society in which he lives. Okay, now notice him in verse 10. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. If you say, behold, we did not know this, does not he who weighs his heart perceive it? Does not he who keeps watch over your soul know it? And will he not repay man according to his work? All right. Now, Solomon is suggesting here that a God-given heart, a godly mind, a godly heart is able to be rescued. Okay, the person who has a godly heart, the person who is upright, when trouble comes, he has a leg to stand on. Because you see, he is being upheld by the knowledge that he has of living the godly life. Yes, Chip.
I can just attest to this. We had this hurricane happen here, and it
Yeah.
was absolute mayhem. Our town got destroyed. And the most insane thing I found that, I had confidence. I wasn't scared. It was just incredible. Where in the past when I wasn't leaning on God, I think that I would be very fearful and I would have been very apprehensive, but I was able to share that confidence with other people. It was amazing.
And what I know from what I know from the incident, how that kind of a confidence pulled people. It made people stop and think about the value of life, about their dependence on God, and how they ought not to be self-reliant, because there comes a point when you can't do anything. All right. And what Solomon is suggesting here is the value of living the life that is moral, the life that is godly, the life that is led not by the deceptive nature of sin, because he says the devising of folly is sin, but because of the confident victory that the fear of the Lord provides. That's Solomon's point. And now notice what he's going to be saying here and now. My son, eat honey, for it is good, and the drippings of the honeycomb are sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is to your soul, is such to your soul. If you find it, there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off. All right. Where do we have this idea of the word being honey? Can you think of any other passage that talks about how that the word is honey?
Is it Isaiah?
Well, tell me what you have in Isaiah. I was thinking of Isaiah though. Look at Psalm 19. Right. All right. Look at Psalm 19.
Verse 10.
Verse? What verse?
Verse 10.
All right. Before you go to verse 10, look at verses 7 to 11. Read verse 7 to 11 of Psalm 19.
Verse 7 says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise simple. The statutes of the law are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether.
Yeah, go up to verse 11.
Verse 10, more to desire are they than gold, yeah, than much fine gold, sweeter always than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them your servant is warned, and in keeping them there is great reward.
My son, eat honey, for it is good, and the dripping of the honeycomb are sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is such to your soul. If you find it, there will be a future and your hope will not be cut off. Now, who is suggesting that the word of the Lord, the statutes of the Lord, the commandments of the Lord, who is it that is suggesting that it is sweeter than honey in Psalm 19? Who is saying that in Psalm 19?
David.
Is it David or Solomon's father? Why you laugh? Do you see the point I'm making? Yes, it is David. But Solomon is passing on to his son what David, his father, passed on to him. How it is that you must treasure wisdom and the fear of the Lord. How it is know that wisdom is such to your soul. If you find it, there will be a future. If and your hope will not be cut off. So here is Solomon. Solomon is suggesting that wisdom as honey does two things. Number one, it is sweet. It's not bitter. Okay? Not only is it sweet, but Solomon says it is nourishing. It sustains. And here is it. Wisdom will save you in the last day. It will save you in the end. You will not be cut off. Okay? You will not be cut off. Now, so Solomon now is passing on this to his son. The importance of knowledge, of understanding, of the fear of the Lord in terms of shaping and forming his life. Notice now, lie not in wait as a wicked man against the dwelling of the righteous. Do no violence to his home, for the righteous falls 7 times and rises again. But the wicked stumble in times of calamity. Here is the idea. Solomon is not suggesting that we're going to have sinless perfection. It's not sinless perfection here now. What Solomon is saying is that the righteous man, yes, he will stumble, but he will be able to stand. He is not going to be utterly defeated. All right? But that is not so the wicked man. Because the wicked man, when he falls, there's no way that he's going to come to stand. All right, there's no hope for him. But there is hope for the righteous person. All right? Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it and be displeased, and turn away his anger from him. Don't rejoice when things go bad for anybody. All right? Now, verse 19. Fret not yourself because of evildoers, and be not envious of the wicked. What do you mean, fret not yourself against, fret not yourself because of evildoers? All right. Here is Solomon's point. Do not envy the evil person. Do not want to pattern your life after evil. Don't fret over the evildoer. Why? Because he has no prosperity. You know, sometimes we look at the unbeliever and we see that he's making leaps and bounds, and we say, how comes God is not blessing me? But you see, Solomon says, don't be fooled by that. Don't envy that person, because there is no hope for the person. Do you know this song? I know you know it. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. Okay, and what does the song says? When you look at others with their land and their gold, do you know the song? Do you know the
Lyrics than
song?
I do.
Hmm?
You may know
So
more
that
lyrics than I do.
you know more about it than I do?
I said I think you may have more knowledge about it than I do.
Yeah. The song says, when you look at others with their land and gold, think that Christ has promised you his wealth untold. Count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord hath done. The idea is we can look at the prosperity of the wicked and want to be like them. Solomon says, don't make that mistake, because that is going to come to nothing. That is not lasting. All right? That is not something, it is not, in other words, don't use them as your example. Don't envy what they have, because you, as a righteous person, whatever, you have more than they have, even though it might not seem to you that you're as economically well off as they are. All right? Don't lose your focus. Why? The evil man has no future. You, as the one who fears the Lord, you have a future. All right? So notice what he says. Why must you not fret yourself against the evildoers and be envious of the wicked? Solomon says, for the evil man has no future. The lamp of the wicked will be put out. He is going down to destruction, and you don't want to be like him. All right? He is going to lose. Okay, it's as if Jesus says, what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? All right? And what the point is that Jesus is making here is there is nothing that is as valuable as you're living in a right relationship with God. Nothing replaces that. And this is what Solomon is saying. Don't fret yourself about those people, because they are going to come to nothing. My son, fear the Lord and the king, and do not join with those who do otherwise. For disaster will arise suddenly from them, and who knows the ruin that will come from them both. Solomon is saying this, they might seem to have some amount of value and thing, But Solomon is saying that is just transitory, that is just fleeting, that is not permanent. Real and true life and living is in conformity with God's word. Living a life that is righteous, that pays more than evil, and you can't compare evil with good in terms of the benefits that you're going to get. So this is Solomon's now saying with the wise. This is what Solomon is suggesting about the life that is lived in accordance with the will of God. All right? Now, let's look at what he says now in verses 23 to the end. These also are sayings of the wise. So he's continuing the sayings of the wise. Remember, we started from chapter 20. All right? Partiality in judgment is not good. Whoever says to the wicked, you are in the right, will be cursed by people, abhorred by nations. But those who rebuke the wicked will have delight. A good blessing will come upon them. Whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. What's Solomon's point here now? All do not be partial. Don't give partial judgment. Don't give impartial judgment. No, sorry. Don't give partial judgment. Don't be unfair in your reward. Be honest and don't show partiality, because that is how that affects your reputation. Notice what he says in verse 26. Whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. In other words, what Solomon is saying is this: being truthful, being impartial restores and builds relationships. Don't be unjust. Don't be unfair in your dealings with people. All right, that's basically what Solomon is saying. Whoever gives an honest answer, verse 26, kisses the lips. It builds a particular kind of relationship here. That's what Paul said. Solomon is saying how it is important that we be impartial in our giving our opinion and justice. That's crucial. All right, now notice what he's going to do in the next verse. Prepare your work outside. Get everything ready for yourself in the field. And after that, build your house. What is Solomon suggesting here? Solomon is suggesting be prudent. Be prudent in securing your wealth, in securing what is yours. Not only must you be prudent, but you must be honest. Okay? it pays to be honest. That's Solomon's point. And make sure that as you deal with individuals, you are truthful, you are prudent, you are discerning, and you must have your priorities right. That is that's Solomon's point. Notice this now. Again, he's talking about how we relate to each other. Be not a witness against your neighbor without cause, and do not deceive with your lips. Do not say, I will not do to him as he has done to me. I will pay the man back for what he has done. What is Solomon saying? What's Solomon's point here?
So personal vengeance and which destroyed lives.
Yeah, don't be people who are vengeful, and don't destroy people's life. In other words, in your dealings with people, don't be a witness without a cause. Don't render evil for evil. And Solomon is saying, you as a wise, discerning person, you are not about getting back at people. You're not about personal vendetta. That must not characterize your life. All right? Don't be people who are bent on getting back at people. That's not the kind of life that you need to be living. No, you must not be involved in that kind of a lifestyle. And again, he's talking about social behavior. All right? How we deal with people. Now, hear what he's going to do now. He is going to begin a parable as he comes down to the end of the chapter. All right? He's going to come down to the idea of the parable. I've watched him with this parable. All right? I passed by the field of a sluggard, and by the vineyard of a man lacking sense. And behold, it was all overgrown with thorns. The ground was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. Then I saw and considered it. I looked and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. All right? Okay. Any comments on this?
Would be
All right.
the proof
Yes,
is in
Chip.
the pudding.
Hmm?
I would say the proof is in the pudding.
All right. Explain. Because I mean,
we would see evidence of what someone valued in their life. If they valued that they wanted to sit around and be a sluggard, then other things would be falling off and wouldn't be taken care of. If we see that someone has chosen a wiser path, then things are more organized, things are more straight, less chaos.
all right. Okay. Anybody else wants to come in? All right. I want you to notice some things here. And I'll come back to you to Chip. So, notice Up to this point, Solomon is talking to somebody. He's talking to his son. He's talking about somebody. This is the kind of life that the prudent must live. This is the kind of life that the industrious man must live. All of that. Solomon now is going to be giving us a parable. Right? Notice how in verses 30 to 32, notice the number of times that Solomon repeats the I. I passed by the field of a sluggard. All right? I saw. I considered. I looked. I received instruction. Solomon now is saying, he first of all looks at himself. We're going to come to look at the sluggard. This is what I saw. This is what I considered. As I passed by, this is what was obvious to me. You know what Solomon is doing here in this parable? Solomon is suggesting, my experience is telling me that there is a consequence, not just to laziness, but there is a consequence to wrong decisions. There is a consequence when you have not considered the consequences of your action. My experience tells me that this will be the ultimate result. So I'm just passing this field of the sluggard, and what I saw in his vineyard, I considered it. In other words, Solomon is saying, okay, I'm talking to you, my son. I'm talking to you and giving you some wise sayings. Listen to me, because my experience tells me that this is what is going to happen. Happen to who? To the sluggard. What do we know about the sluggard? He has a vineyard. Now, that vineyard is supposed to produce good. That vineyard is supposed to guide his life. That vineyard is supposed to give him wealth. In other words, the vineyard represents the opportunities that he has for good.
You will know them by their fruit.
You can know them by their, in fact, what this man has produced, there's nothing. So the vineyard is representing the opportunities that he has to live a prosperous life. But now notice what is his problem. He lacks sense. All right? And it's okay. Solomon says, and behold, I'm shocked. How could this happen to him? It was all overgrown with thorns. The ground is covered with nettles. Some of the wall was broken down. There's total, utter destruction. Now notice Solomon. Solomon is saying, this is the ultimate result of bad choice. Not only is it that he's lazy, but he has made some bad choices. And what is the result of his bad choice? The overgrown thorns, the nettles, the broken down wall, total destruction. So now, what was his problem? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. You know what Solomon is suggesting? We sometimes, in the way we live, the way we conduct our lives, we don't know and notice that little by little it becomes a trend and a pattern, and we don't benefit from our wrong decisions. And okay, it doesn't matter if I make this one mistake. I mean, I can correct it. It doesn't matter if I miss church this one time. It's like Jesus says, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. In other words, what Solomon is saying, don't say it is just a little thing. If you are not careful, it can build and mushroom into something that will bring about your poverty, whether your spiritual poverty or your financial whatever. In other words, Solomon is saying, as you go through life, you make the best use of the opportunities that you have. So a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and what happens? Poverty might come, poverty may come. No, poverty will come. And it is going to come in such a way that you don't even realize where your actions are taking you. You ever hear people say, well, I didn't know how that could happen. I didn't know how this happened. Well, you have been setting a lifestyle throughout, and what else do you expect? And poverty will come upon you like a robber. And what is the result? And want like an armed man. In other words, it is going to rob you of your vineyard. It is going to make, in other words, it is going to rob you of what you should get, of the benefits of the opportunities that you have. And Solomon is saying, small, watch this, small, repeated actions and choices will produce ultimate ruin if they are not proper decisions. All right, and this is the outcome of laziness. All right, so this is Solomon's point. Solomon is saying your actions will lead to consequences. All right, you will reap what you have sown. This is going to be your problem. All right, any comments on this from verses 30 to 34?
I was
Yes,
uh,
David.
I was making some notations here. I like it for a sermon.
Yeah.
It's called little by little.
Yes. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I was looking the how how the things start, just deceiving himself. It's just a little.
Mhm.
It's just a little. So yeah, we can make a lot of applications with this. I'm too tired. I won't pray this night, and it's just this night. And then
Mhm.
little by little, the prayer life ends. And yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, uh, the visuals results
Hmm.
are visual for everyone. So sometimes we don't see it, but our life can be with a lot of thorns, nettles, and we don't have walls and everything, and we don't see it because we are just sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like Hebrews chapter 2. It says we need to give the more earnest attention to the things we have heard, lest at any time we let them slip. In other words, lest they drift past us. All right. Emmanuel, what do you think about these verses 30 to 34?
Yeah, I was also thinking of since grows where discipline is absent. And when you talk of our spiritual weeks, as David made mention of prayers, sometimes we will neglect as if, okay, this time, let me wait this time and pray. When the time is due, at the same time, you say, oh, you've been occupied by another thing. So little by little, by the time you realize you are in doom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. As
Yeah.
Hebrews chapter 13, verse 22 also made mention of that. So we are surrounded by a huge witness of people. So we shouldn't even make these little things overcome us. We should rather stand firm, make bold decision in life.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we'll be joking with our life.
Yeah. In other words, what Solomon is saying now, when you live, okay, uh, little by little, if you're not careful, you will drift away. Because here is the point: we don't just drift away just like that, you know. It is incremental. It is point by point. But okay, it's like a person might say, "Well, I'm too tired to come to worship," and you do it this time, and it feels good. You do it a little, and gradually say, "Well, you have now left the worship and the fellowship of the Christians." And you wonder, how did I get to this point? Well, it is because you have been building up a weakness over time, and it is going to overcome you. So, and notice what Solomon says, you know. He says, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. Because you're not expecting it. You see what I'm saying? You're almost swept off your feet. You're almost caught unguarded. Why? Because of the wrong decisions you have been making down through the life. You're not making use of the opportunities that you have. And what Solomon says, it is because you are lacking sense. You're not able to discern. You're not able to evaluate things. And Solomon says there is going to be and there is a consequence. All right. So that is verses that is chapters 22 right down to chapter 24. All right. Any closing comments? Any take homes?
I like
Anybody?
I like the verse 27.
Mm-hmm.
Prepare thy work outside, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterward build thy house. And I was comparing that with the parable because normally the house is to rest, to enjoy, to have a meal and everything. But first you need to work. And I was comparing that because this is a diligent man if he
Mm-hmm.
do that. So I was thinking about in a deeper spiritual sense, it's time to work here. And our
Yeah.
house will be waiting for us, but now it's time to work.
Yes. It's like again, the Hebrew writer says, we must labor so that we can enter into rest. Yeah, right. This is the time for us to be laboring. All right. Chip, any closing comments?
I mean, this last little section is it's a real eye opener, really. I mean, I guess that even for men like us who are actually pursuing God and trying to be on a godly path, this is a great reminder to just stay on the path and don't forget about
Mhm.
our responsibilities as we're on that path. And if we stay mindful and we don't forget, then people will be able to walk by our field and see who we truly represent.
Yeah. You know, and as you're saying, if you don't stay on the path, if you are not focused, if you're not, and this is why Solomon says to his son, listen to, incline your ears to instructions, because if you don't do that, then you are going to be led astray. That is exactly what Solomon is saying, and then you could use that is also something that you can um, understand why you need to be focused, because if you're not, it's easy to lose your path. All right. Um, uh, Emmanuel, any closing comments?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at verse 30 to 34,
Mm-hmm.
as we do some applications, our personal life needs to be guarded with spiritual discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And also, faith requires daily effort, as is made mention of Luke chapter, chapter 9, verse 23.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus made some parable,
Mm-hmm.
and it says, then he said to them, if anyone desire to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me.
Mm-hmm.
So our faith requires daily effort. When it comes to family, neglected family also suffer for spiritual decay. And parents must also cultivate faith intentionally, as it is also made mention of Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4.
Mm-hmm.
And as a church, congregation, when they are weak, or when weakened congregation members also separate themselves from those who are strong. And God also expects orderliness and diligence in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse number 40. I said everything should be done decently in order. So
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't neglect the little things that, we just brush our eyes off and we say, oh, this is nothing, this is nothing. So we should take critical look at that, because it is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
There is a saying that neglect is not neutral. So if righteousness is not cultivated, decay is inevitable. So we
Mm-hmm.
need to also pay critical attention to that. That is my takeaway.
Okay, great. Yeah, very good points. And the application that we make, there are clear applications here in what Solomon is saying about life and about how the discipline, about the focus, attention, the dependence on the fear of the Lord, the knowledge, and how, if we're not careful, as we have been saying in the class today, actions or inactions have consequences. All right. And it can either be consequences for good or consequences for evil. And Solomon ends with this man who didn't realize how he was slipping, how he was slipping into poverty. Why? Because he had no sense. He was not thinking, he was not prudent. All right. Yeah, thank you very much for a very, very good class. Very, very good class, and some very good points that came out. When we come to Thursday's class, I will say some things more about. Well, we're going to go deeper into the chapter. I think we're going to be doing chapter 25. I think perhaps chapter 29. Is it? I think, or is it? I think that's the chapters we're going to look at, or maybe 25 to 26, whatever. But I will speak something more about the midterm test, and we will revise certain things that we're talking about. All right? Okay, then. Thank you.
25 to 27.
Yeah, 25 to 27. All right? And then I will spend some time to look at the midterm quiz. All right? Again, thank you very much. One of you want to dismiss us? Any one of you? Who will bell the cat?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, Chip. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lord, so much for another day. Thank you so much for my brothers here. I'm just so blessed to be able to be with them and grow with them and study with them, and hopefully, in turn, please you and hopefully bring more souls to you. Lord, help us to be loving and help us to be kind. Help us to be great reflections of you. Help us to keep our field looking very nice, so that all of the people that pass by know who we represent. God, we're so thankful for these wonderful proverbs and this wisdom that you have given to us to guide our lives. Help us to use them. Help us to gain vision and wisdom as we continue to study them. Please be with Brother Eddie's eyes. Help them to get back 100%, and be with my brothers here in all of their ministries and the things that they're working for you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 All right. Thank you very much. And we will meet again. We will meet again
Right.
on Thursday. And
I
I'll
hope
see some of you tomorrow.
I hope you
Thank
have
you
a
too.
bountiful eye.
Thank you. A generous eye, right? Okay, great.
Bye.
Okay, all right then. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.